$1.9 billion in a bank account. That never existed, and nobody noticed for years. Imagine a company worth $24 billion, listed on Germany's most prestigious stock exchange, trusted by banks, investors, and regulators across the world. And then one day, the auditors ask a simple question: where is the money? And the answer comes back: it doesn't exist. $1.9 billion. Gone. Because it was never there. This is the story of Wirecard, the greatest corporate fraud in European history, and the man who vanished into thin air when it all came crashing down. Wirecard was supposed to be Germany's answer to Silicon Valley, a homegrown tech success story, a payment processing company that rose from nothing to become one of the most valuable companies in Europe, worth $24 billion at its peak, listed on the DAX, Germany's equivalent of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, trusted by millions of customers across the world. And it was almost entirely fiction. The story starts in 1999, a small payment processing startup founded in Munich, Germany. Nothing special, nothing dramatic, just a company processing online payments for e-commerce businesses. But in 2002, a man named Markus Braun took over as CEO, and everything changed. Braun was a tall, imposing Austrian with a background in technology consulting. He always wore black turtlenecks. He spoke about technology and innovation with the passion of a true believer. He was compared to Steve Jobs. He called Wirecard the future of global payments, and he convinced the world he was building something revolutionary. He was not. He was building one of the most sophisticated financial frauds the world had ever seen. For years, Wirecard grew aggressively. They expanded into Asia, into the Middle East, into Africa. They reported explosive revenue growth. Quarter after quarter, the numbers went up. Investors poured money in. Analysts praised the company. In 2018, Wirecard became so valuable that it replaced one of Germany's oldest banks on the prestigious DAX index. This was a massive moment. Germany was celebrating. A technology company had beaten the old guard. Braun was a national hero. But behind the scenes, journalists were starting to ask questions. The Financial Times, one of the world's most respected financial newspapers, had been investigating Wirecard since 2015. Reporters Dan McCrum and Stefania Palma had received tips from whistleblowers. Tips that suggested Wirecard's financial statements were fraudulent, that revenues in Asia were being fabricated, that the company was booking fake transactions through third-party partners in countries like the Philippines and Singapore. The Financial Times published their findings, and Wirecard fought back furiously. They hired lawyers. They threatened lawsuits. They accused the Financial Times reporters of market manipulation. They convinced German regulators to investigate the journalists instead of the company. German financial regulator BaFin actually banned short selling of Wirecard stock, effectively protecting the fraudulent company from the market's natural correction mechanism. The journalists were vilified. Wirecard was celebrated, and the fraud continued. But the Financial Times kept digging, and in 2020, they published a bombshell report. Wirecard's auditors at Ernst & Young had been unable to verify 1.9 billion euros in cash. Cash that was supposed to be sitting in trust accounts in the Philippines. Ernst & Young had been requesting confirmation of those accounts for months, and the confirmation never came. Because the accounts did not exist, 1.9 billion euros, completely fabricated, on the books of a company worth $24 billion. When the news broke, Wirecard's stock price collapsed instantly. 80% wiped out in days. Billions in investor wealth evaporated. German authorities finally launched a full criminal investigation, and Markus Braun, the man in the black turtleneck who had compared himself to Steve Jobs, was arrested. He was taken into custody and charged with fraud, market manipulation, and breach of trust. He sat in a German prison waiting for trial. But his right-hand man, Chief Operating Officer Jan Marsalek, was nowhere to be found. Jan Marsalek had fled. The day before Wirecard's collapse became public, Marsalek had boarded a private plane and disappeared. He was eventually traced to Belarus, then Russia, where he has been living ever since, protected by Russian intelligence services, beyond the reach of European law enforcement. Marsalek was not just a corporate fraudster. Evidence emerged that he had connections to Russian and Austrian intelligence agencies, that he had been gathering information on political figures, that Wirecard itself may have been used as a front for intelligence operations. The story went from corporate fraud to international spy thriller overnight. The fallout from Wirecard was catastrophic. Ernst & Young, the auditing firm that had signed off on Wirecard's books for years, failed to verify 1.9 billion euros in cash. For years. How does an auditor miss $1.9 billion in fake cash? For years. The same question that destroyed Arthur Andersen after Enron was being asked again. German regulators faced massive criticism for banning short selling of Wirecard stock, for investigating journalists instead of the company, for protecting a fraud while ordinary investors lost everything. Thousands of retail investors who had trusted Wirecard, who had put their savings into a company on Germany's most prestigious index, lost everything overnight. The Wirecard scandal sent shockwaves through European finance. Germany was humiliated. The country that prided itself on financial discipline and corporate integrity had allowed a $24 billion fraud to flourish for years, right under the noses of regulators, right under the noses of auditors, right under the noses of the financial establishment. Because Wirecard had done what every great fraudulent company does. They made the numbers look so good. They told the story so convincingly. They fought back so aggressively against anyone who questioned them that nobody wanted to believe the truth. In 2022, the trial of Marcus Braun began in Munich. He faced charges of fraud, embezzlement, and market manipulation. Braun maintained his innocence. He claimed he was a victim, that Marsalek had been running the fraud behind his back, that he had no idea the cash did not exist. The trial stretched on for years, one of the longest and most complex criminal trials in German history. Meanwhile, Jan Marsalek remains in Russia, living freely, protected by Russian intelligence, with no prospect of extradition. The man most responsible for the fraud has never faced justice. The Wirecard story is unlike any other corporate fraud in history. It has everything. A charismatic CEO in a black turtleneck selling a vision of the future. Fabricated billions in cash that never existed. Whistleblowing journalists who were investigated instead of protected. Regulators who protected the fraud instead of exposing it. A fugitive CFO connected to Russian intelligence, living freely in Moscow, beyond the reach of justice. And $24 billion in investor wealth, gone. The Wirecard scandal proved something terrifying. A company can fake its entire existence, fabricate billions in cash, list on the most prestigious stock exchange in Europe, get certified by one of the world's largest auditing firms, and fool every regulator, every investor, and every analyst for years. All while journalists who told the truth were silenced and investigated. This is not just a story about corporate fraud. It is a story about a system so broken, so compromised, so willing to protect the powerful, that the truth-tellers were punished, and the fraudsters almost got away. This is Boardroom Fallout, where billion-dollar lies come to light. Subscribe now, because the next story is even bigger.